Right, let's jump straight into this explainer. Today, we're taking a hammer to a really dangerous illusion that traps way too many organizations. It's this belief that, hey, if we just get our infrastructure back online, we've survived the crisis. You know the drill, right? A crisis hits, the IT team works around the clock, they scramble, and boom, systems are back up. But actually, scratch that. Technical recovery is literally just one piece of a much, much larger puzzle.
Let's play out a scenario for a second. Imagine your disaster recovery plan is officially signed off. Your technical team, they're declaring absolute victory after a massive cyber attack. The green lights on your dashboards are finally blinking again. Okay, but if your servers are running, does that actually mean you're in business? Because the reality might be that your business teams are just staring at their screens, totally unable to process a single order or, validate a single transaction.
The stark reality here is that hitting your technical recovery time objectives, it means absolutely nothing if your operational flow is still completely paralyzed. A restored system can actually be, completely useless. You might have recovered all your databases, sure, but if your users can't authenticate, or if your external flows are still totally broken, your organization is still effectively dead in the water.
So let's move into Section 1, the illusion of control, specifically looking at technical versus operational recovery. This right here is what we call the Trojan horse scenario. It happens all the time. On one side, you're technically restored. Your ERP is humming along, backups are restored, infrastructure is completely available. Basically, IT is popping the champagne. But operationally, you're entirely blocked. Some crucial SaaS dependencies were just missing from the recovery scenarios. Manual validations were never even documented. So your servers are running, yeah, but because, say, a new external MFA system wasn't properly tracked, nobody can process any orders. It's just an illusion of control.
So why exactly does this happen? Honestly, it boils down to the unseen chaos of a crisis. Under normal, everyday conditions, your teams naturally compensate for operational gaps. They rely on years of experience, tacit knowledge, informal habits, or just a quick chat over coffee to get things done. But in a full-blown crisis, all those informal compensating mechanisms completely vanish. Suddenly, you're brutally exposed to forgotten external dependencies, completely undocumented manual workflows, and local procedures that totally contradict each other. The technical framework might be there, but the operational glue holding it all together is just gone.
Which brings us to Section 2, the broken value chain. Remember, value actually relies on flows.
Because here's the thing. Organizations do not create value just by having servers on a rack. They create value through this massive interconnected chain of operations. And to really grasp this, we need to fundamentally reframe how we think around something called the business object. A business object is the true carrier of your organizational value. Think of it like a customer order, a payment, or a client file. For your business to actually function, this object has to circulate. Restoring infrastructure without also restoring the ability for these business objects to move around, that doesn't give you real recovery. The servers are just the highway, but the business object, that is the actual cargo. I absolutely love this quote from our source material because it hits the nail right on the head. It says, "A restored order that cannot be validated has no value. A recovered transaction that cannot be transmitted creates no operational benefit." It makes total sense, right? Data only has value through its actual usage. I mean, just having data sitting on a recovered hard drive is completely useless if it can't move across your business chain. The value isn't in just possessing the data. The value is in actually mobilizing it. All right, moving into Section 3, why programs decay, and specifically, losing coherence. What's really fascinating is exactly why this massive gap happens in the first place. And honestly, it is a frustratingly common story. Look at the timeline. In month 1, your business impact analyses and your continuity plans, they're documented perfectly. Everything looks great. But then, month 3 rolls around, and maybe some new SaaS platforms are adopted. By month 6, teams have completely reorganized and local providers have been swapped out. And by month 12, that overall operational coherence you had at the start has just completely disappeared. The reality is that dependencies change way faster than documentation ever could. So as your organization naturally evolves, your resilience plans are just silently rotting away. This highlights a pretty massive shift. Resilience is really becoming a visibility problem, not just a technical one. Think about what happens during a crisis. Decision-making fails because everyone is completely stuck in their own little silo. Technical teams are only looking at the infrastructure, the business teams are only looking at their specific operations, and suppliers, well, they only see their own tiny perimeter.
absolutely nobody is maintaining a transverse, big picture view. So you end up with completely fragmented visibility right at the exact moment when you desperately need a unified picture the most.
Let's wrap things up with Section 4, Actionable Resilience, and how we sustain it over time. So how exactly do we shift from that rotting documentation we just talked about to a truly dynamic system? The source material drops this really profound truth. Resilience is not simply a documentation project. It is a living operational system. That is huge. The initial effort of producing a BIA or a DRP, that isn't the real challenge. The true test of any organization is actually maintaining those plans so that they stay operationally usable as your business inevitably transforms. And this decay we're talking about, it is especially deadly in large distributed organizations. I mean, you're constantly dealing with local process adaptations, totally differing regional tools, and highly specific regulatory constraints. Maintaining global governance while dealing with all those evolving local practices becomes just a monumental task. Think about it. When one subsidiary decides to change a local SaaS tool, does the global DRP even know about it? Usually, no way. And that specific disconnect is exactly where the entire system breaks down during a crisis.
This is exactly why a solution like Arkeionis.app was created. It wasn't built to be just some static repository for dead documents, but rather a living environment tied directly to actual operational ROI. For example, their Vault option preserves structured operational memory so that crucial knowledge isn't just lost during staff turnover. Then there's the conversational agent, which drastically cuts down on crisis analysis time when you're under immense ticking clock pressure. And finally, the dependency visualization. This prevents those deadly inconsistencies between your BIA, your BCP, and your DRP. It basically ensures that both your global and local dimensions stay perfectly aligned and, more importantly, actionable.
To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final, slightly provocative thought about your own resilience program. When the next crisis hits, and it will, are you just restoring servers, or are you actually restoring your ability to create value? It's a critical difference, because actionable resilience, the ability to keep your business objects moving seamlessly across your entire value chain, that is what truly keeps your business alive. Thank you so much for diving into this with me today, and hey, make sure you take a really hard look at those recovery plans.